couple of weeks back, being down with COVID, I ended up watching a good number of shows on Netflix, including one standout documentary called 14 Peaks, about a guy who climbed the 14 highest mountains in the world
in 7 months.
Since I love a challenge, I decided to do my own smaller version, well, much smaller version, and climb each of the 4 peaks in Wales which surpass 1,000 metres in height within the space of 24 hours. So today, I'm in the sunny Snowdonia National Park in Wales, and I've located 3 mountains which I'm going to attempt to climb within the next 24 hours. And right now, I'm at the first one, which is called Carned Llewellyn. Will I make it? I'm not sure, but it's worth a try. Let's go. With the sun out and a near 20 kilo rucksack on my back, I knew this task would be difficult. For many, this might cease to even be a challenge, but for me personally, I knew it would be far from easy. Regardless, in a landscape surrounded by wildlife, incredible views and perfect weather, I had absolutely nothing to lose. So even though this is the tallest mountain I'm going to climb, it's also most likely the easiest one, because first off, I have a lot of energy, and second off, it's a lot more gradual than the others. Despite my initial optimism, just half an hour of uphill walking had put my positivity on hold, as my fitness levels really began to be tested. You know what? I'm just going to say it now. I don't have a chance. I am so dead. I just feel so out of shape. It's mad. I'm not even halfway up the first one. How am I going to do 3? Never mind that one. Regardless, I continued upwards into the incredible scenery of the national park. So, I just sat down for a quick break and I found out something kind of encouraging. So the hill that I'm climbing up there is a separate mountain from the mountain that I was originally aiming for, which is down there. So if I take a slight detour up the smaller one, that will mean that immediately I've done 1 mountain. But not only was this just another mountain, at 1,044 metres, it was also the 4th peak to surpass 1,000 metres. This is 10 times harder than I expected. One wrong foot, and I'm in a bad position. This part of the hike was more of a climb than a walk, with a sharp drop of probably 50 metres staring at me down below. But soon enough it levelled out, and the first mountain was now within my sight. So close, so close. The first landmark was a smaller mountain peak at 978 metres, and from here, the next 2 peaks will be a much more gradual, smoother walk. So over there, you can see the first peak. Behind it is the second one, the taller one. After less than half an hour of walking onwards, the first peak had now been completed and only the 3 originals were left. So now, Mountain 1 has been completed. Let's keep going. This part definitely wasn't as hard as the first section, but it was along this stretch in the 22-degree heat where I encountered my first real concern. So I came across a guy who was out of water and feeling bad. I gave him half of mine. With another 3 or 4 hours of walking to be done in the day, I now only had half a small bottle of water left. There's not a chance I'm going to drink that. I'm going to have to find a stream or something somewhere. So it goes dark in about 4 hours, which means realistically I need to get to the top of this within the next half an hour. because I cannot afford to be heading back in the dark. You know, I'm no expert on this area, so I could easily get lost. Oh. Just to make things even harder, it's now insanely windy, but I can see the top. With the second peak now in sight, I was approaching the halfway point of the challenge, and for the first time in a while, I felt optimistic again. Mountain number 2 is complete. We made it to the top. I am knackered and so thirsty. Finding a drink has to be priority now, and then I need to head back to camp, get a good night's sleep, get some food, and tomorrow I'm 100% sure I'm going to make it on top of that final mountain. But just like that, I encountered another scare. It's okay. Thankfully, the camera was fine, and so I began the long walk back to the field where I planned to spend the night, which right now looked like 1,000 light years away. But there was certainly no need to rush. This is honestly one of the most peaceful places I've ever been to in my life. There's just nobody about here. It's just so quiet and relaxing. We're getting closer. I'd say another half an hour and I should be back at camp, which means I should be back before total darkness, which is good. So I climbed down feeling like Spider-Man, far from home and still a long way from the campsite. Thankfully, however, I wasn't far from water. The climb down was actually in many ways harder than the climb up. Despite being less physically challenging, maintaining balance proved kind of difficult. After a quick recharge, I managed to make it to the campsite by sunset, as I set up the tent and prepared for my first meal of the day. And boy, it tasted good. This tastes so good right now. Then, after a bit of relaxation, it was time to sleep. I am so tired. My feet are blistered up as well, which is a big issue. Anyway, time to sleep. Let's pray tomorrow goes well, and I'll wake up feeling healthy. I'll see you tomorrow, guys. I'm so tired this morning. I don't know how easy this is going to be, but I've got to give it a go, you know. I came here for the challenge, and I don't want to go back without completing it. So yeah, it's time to drive to Snowdon and see how things go. The drive wasn't too long, as I aimed to begin the walk by 8 AM, which would give me about 5 hours to complete the job successfully. Soon enough, after the scenic voyage, I'd arrived at the foot of Snowdon. I literally have 4 hours and 20 minutes to climb the 2 tallest mountains. And so began the penultimate leg of this adventure. So far, this walk is a lot more steady than the one yesterday. If it stays like this, it's probably going to be easier than the one yesterday. But if I'm honest, it's too early to judge. My tiredness was worse than I'd anticipated, and by the time I'd reached the main tourist car park, I was already feeling shattered and defeated as I looked ahead to the long walk I still had to complete. Hours. By this point, I'd caught up with the traffic, and whilst 80% of people overtook me, I realised that the goal of 24 hours was going to be so much harder than I'd anticipated. I underestimated this big time. I'm just over halfway up top, but I've got about 2 hours to go. Hope's faded away completely. Regardless of the time it was going to take me, there was no taking away the beauty of the surrounding landscape. I now walked at a slower pace, enjoying the landscape and the views, and forgetting about the whole 24-hour idea. If I'm being honest, I honestly have 0% chance of succeeding. I'm nowhere near the top, and I feel dead. In spite of my exhaustion, I still wanted to reach the final 2 peaks, so I continued slowly upwards. As I did approach the top, I sat down for a quick break and checked the time, expecting it all to be over. But instead, I learned that somehow I still had 45 minutes to go, and now my motivation was stronger than ever before. So close, so close. With a full 30 minutes still to go, I reached the peak of Snowdon, where I was forced to queue before I could officially claim mountain number 3, the highest one yet. And suddenly, I was 75% of the way through the challenge, with the last peak looming just around the corner, in the stunning Snowdonia landscape. This was the final stretch, the shortest one, which would dictate whether or not I'd complete the challenge within the allocated time. But by now, I didn't even care. Having come close to quitting multiple times, just reaching the final peak would have been a proud accomplishment. And soon enough, I'd done just that. It's done. 4 peaks, complete. The 4 peaks had now been completed, and to my own surprise, with a whole 4 minutes left on the clock. Hey Belle. This testing challenge, which had pushed me right to the end of my limits, had taken me to the 4 highest points in Wales. 1 down, 2 to go. I'd walked through one of the nicest landscapes I'd ever seen, and felt more proud and accomplished than I'd felt in a long time, and eagerly motivated to unlock more memories and even bigger achievements in the days, months and years that lie ahead.